Marketing, branding, and getting the sales show. Today, our topic is how to have your website attract the customers that you want. You may notice we're here at a new weekly time. We're going for 8:15 a.m. or maybe 8:18 a.m. as it happens to be right now. But let us know when you're watching. So hashtag live if you're watching live, hashtag replay if you're watching in the replay. So before we dive into our topic, let's do some quick intros. So Stephen, let's go to you first.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Stephen Lerman from Chameleon BDS Limited, Outsourced Business Development Services. So I do cold calling, appointment setting, and prospecting for those people that don't want to, don't like to, or don't have the resources to do so in-house. You could subcontract that out to me, and I will make all those phone calls for you. That's me.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stephen. Jessica, let people know who you are.
Amazing. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Jess. I work with businesses to make sure they get a high return on the marketing, grow the business, overall increasing all the profits. Do that by getting them more loyal customers, building up the retention, because in actual fact, just a 5% increase in customer retention can increase your profits. Well, on average, it's up to 95%, so it's a huge amount. So I take my clients through my 6-step brand loyalty process. So if you want to know that, if you want to know the steps to that, let me know. I can send you a video. So that's me, Jess. I'm a brand consultant.
Fantastic. Thank you. And for anyone who doesn't know who I am, my name is Una Doyle. I'm a business strategist and coach. And I love to help creative business owners to grow profitable and fun to run businesses. I have a session that can help any business to uncover at least 50k in additional revenues without any extra spend on marketing or ads, and do so in only 50 minutes. If you want to know how, ask me for a video that shows you the steps. So good morning, everybody. Just to answer this, often like Jill has asked, she said, I'm in the process of designing a new website and I would love to learn, but I can't make this particular time. So yes, you can watch here afterwards as well. So fantastic. Okay, so Jess, let's go over to you. What do you think is the biggest challenge that businesses have in how to have a website that attracts the customers they want? Because we said in the description here that people can lose up to 75% of their potential customers. So what's that about? Oh, you're muted.
There we go, being too prepared. But yeah, just with a bad website alone, you can be losing 75% of your customers. So, for everyone, whether you've got a small database or a large database, 75% more customers is amazing, isn't it? It's what we're kind of all working towards all the time. So just making sure that your website is user-friendly, communicating the right information, being consistent with your brand. So when I look at people's websites, I'm no website developer, I'm no huge website expert, but when I look at my clients' websites, I look at how well they communicate the brand. And a lot of that ties into how websites are built and how, the journey around your website and things like that. So there is some interesting stats, which I wrote down in front of me so I wouldn't miss them. So I'll read them out to you as well. Because including a bad website can lose 75% of your customers. I've got people at 88% less likely to return to a bad website, which, when you think back, if I've had a bad experience, I don't return there. Another interesting one is 74% of people will actually switch to a different brand if they have a bad experience. So we've spoke about this before, you're doing all the work to nurture this customer, to show them that, they have a need and a want for what you offer. But then when it comes to buying, when they're ready to give you the money, they're saying, okay, take all my money and help me. You're not helping them make that purchase, and they're easy enough to switch to a different brand. So again, that's really damaging, and your time as well, isn't it? Your time in building up them customers. So that's huge. And the last one that I've got here is 64% of customers actually value customer service higher than price. So again, we've spoke about that briefly on a few of the videos, haven't we? If you want to look back, they're all in our feeds. They're all in YouTube as well, on Una's YouTube page. But competing on price doesn't get you as far as what you might think it does, because 64% of customers actually value customer service. So if your website is there, providing that customer service without you having to be there in the room, then it's a win-win. So what do you think of them guys? Do they shock you, I suppose?
I think the 64% valuing customer service over price, I think, is just such a significant statistic for people to take note of, because so often people will, they'll do, one of the things that people often do is that they sabotage their own success, because by not charging appropriately, they then don't have the money to invest in the help they need to be able to have a high performing website, to be able to have the right messaging and marketing and all of those things that actually will help them to grow. So it becomes a kind of vicious cycle, this race to the bottom. So I think for people to understand, like, wow, okay, so people are saying they value that customer service, they value that experience over the price. So yeah, I just wanted to really pull that out and draw it to people's attention. Stephen, what's your thoughts on what Jesse said?
I didn't realize that statistic, the percentage was so high, but I totally agree. At the end of the day, you get what you pay for, and people should absolutely pay not so much the market price, but pay what they, should charge what they absolutely feel is the value of the product or service or website or whatever it is. And I've been in situations before where I've gone to a higher, even though our product looks great, I've actually gone to a higher price product because there's so much more behind the product that you get value from, like customer service and after sales service or anything like that. So I'm astounded that percentage is so high, 64%. That's huge, and that's worth taking note of. Absolutely.
That's another great example as well of a brand nurturing you. A certain brand has given you enough information for you to think that, okay, this is what I want to do. In all that kind of marketing beforehand that people probably are looking at subconsciously, but you've gone through that process, you've gone through that journey of deciding to buy, and you've not switched because the website's bad, but you've actually switched because it looks like someone else offers a better product. So you could be losing customers with not communicating your product in the best way, I suppose. I don't really know much about that story, but the products or service could have been more similar than what you perceived them to be, but because one of them didn't communicate that well enough through the brand, through the website, through any of the marketing, you've quite happily switched to someone else who communicates that well. So that's another example of all the hard work and money and time that goes into building up your audience to then have someone else take them away.
If I can just add one further point, you make a great point there, Jess. A clear message. I mean, there are so many. I know we're not talking about TV ads, but I think it can transfer to websites. If it's not clear what the product is that you're selling, it just confuses people, and people get frustrated and just leave the website. And I've seen adverts on TV, and I'm like, and it's not until the very end that you're like, oh, that's what it's for. But if you've only got a certain amount of time before people will click off a website and go somewhere else because it's not a clear message. It's a bit different on the TV station when you're looking at TV adverts. But I think if the message isn't clear and right from the very few seconds that you click on that website what the product is, you've lost a potential customer.
Another stat to throw at you as well is it takes, when people land on your website, they'll judge it within like 0.5 seconds of landing on your website. So again, that's why it's so, we're going to share tips and advice and stuff with you as well in this call, but that's why it's so crucial, isn't it, to grab their attention instantly, not expecting them to click here, click there, and read that and read this, just grabbing them at that first instance.
And I think what's important as well, this applies just as much to service-based businesses as it does for e-commerce. You need to be able to land on a website and tell instantly, is this for you? Is this going to solve a problem or aspiration that you have? And also, how does that stand out? How is it differentiated from your competitors? And all too often, when we look at people's websites, I mean, I'm looking at them a lot, as I'm, prospects are kind of going, oh, I'd like to talk to you about my business. Like, one of the first things I'll do is I'll look at their website and just see, is it clear what they do? Do they stand out from the competition? And unfortunately, most of the time they don't. So I think that getting those core fundamentals are just so key. I just think it makes a massive, massive difference. And actually, just going back to Stephen's point about ads, I went to the cinema at the weekend, so went to see Ghostbusters, which actually highly recommended, by the way. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, there was, there's ads before the main film comes on. And there was one ad, and I don't even remember what it was for, obviously. But me and my husband Steve, like, we just looked at each other and went, huh? Like, exactly like what you were saying, Stephen, with many of the ads, that some of them, you're kind of watching them, like there seems to be a real trend for very cinematic ads that are kind of story based, but you often don't find out until the end, what is this actually about? And sometimes it kind of goes, okay, that makes sense. Sometimes you're like, not so sure. But there was this one particular ad, and we were just like, I have no idea what the ad is for, who it's aimed at or anything. So yeah, we really do need to be crystal clear.
And again, you've not remembered, have you? You've not remembered that brand. You've not, whether it's a good, well, whether it's a bad ad, so some people, might think that, how can I word this, kind of bad publicity is just as good or better as good publicity, I suppose. But, you've seen that ad that didn't quite make sense and was just that little bit too different that it didn't quite slot into what they were trying to say, and you completely can't remember who they are. So
yeah, and it wasn't that it was different. It was just unclear. It wasn't like it was wild and wacky or anything. It was just an ad that, I mean, it's potentially it just wasn't aimed at us. And maybe there's another segment of the audience that totally got it. Like, that is possible. But you kind of would think, well, I didn't even know. We looked at the brand, we hadn't heard of the brand, and we didn't know what the brand did. So we had no idea what that product or service was. So I just can't help thinking that that's a bad ad.
You have to also think as well, if you're watching Ghostbusters Afterlife, so what's that, a 12 or a 12A or whatever, because it's a kid's movie. So you have to think,
saying, Stephen, we were too old. I mean, that's why we get it.
Well, no. Well, you'd have to think. You'd have to expect that whoever's marketing these ads would put audience appropriate ads before the movie.
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely.
So I don't listen. We're young at heart, and I think we're, I mean, I know you girls are both older than me, but anyway. But I know, fighting talk, right? So it begs the question: have they done their research properly? So there's a whole thing that goes there's a whole, back room that goes behind advertising and marketing, targeting an appropriate audience. And you think when you've got an audience, a captive audience like that, you would want to get it spot on every single time. The amount of money that's invested and then ultimately wasted. I mean, we're talking about, how to have, making sure that our websites that we're promoting, our respective websites, attracted the right customers and are not wasting money. But that's a complete waste of money.
Mm.
I just don't get it. I think some people have a lot to answer for. Really.
I think a lot of it is that there's a process that needs to be gone through to do the groundwork, to get those foundations in place, in order then to be able to have those foundations, support all marketing efforts, including your website. But let's have a look at some, specific tips then. So Jess, over to you. What tips do you want to share? I know you work with a lot of product-based businesses. What would you kind of advise them to do, and how do they apply potentially to service-based businesses?
Yeah. So I've got five good tips, because I look at businesses' websites quite a lot. I offer a brand audit and looking at the website. So I'll do your personalized video, looking at your website and seeing how well you're communicating your brand through your website. Kind of pick out the stuff that you're doing great, so you can do more of it, because we all want to know that. And then maybe give you some tips as well. So I wrote down 5 of the common tips that I give out to that. And just to mention, if you're interested in getting one of them, drop me a message, connect with me, and I'm still offering them out at the minute. So if you want one, let me know. So the first one that I always kind of come across more often than what I realized or thought I would is to be more concise and clear in what you're saying. A lot of websites have great, paragraphs, great text, great content in there. When I read it, I'm really impressed, but it's not clear and it's not concise enough. Whether that's, turning some of that content into icons or something that's easily recognizable, or again, repeating that information. Don't be afraid to repeat. It's obviously not everywhere. I'm not saying the exact same thing in every party website, but don't be afraid to have some icons with some of the benefits, and then underneath have a paragraph that explains that, so you still got your content in there. So yeah, clear and concise, maybe through icons, and don't worry about repeating yourself. Another one is leading with the why. So a lot of the time when I do these audits, I have to look at about us, I have to scroll down, I have to read, and really find out what their why is, what their belief is, why they're doing what they do, what is it that drives them. So having that clear in the first instance, leading with that emotion, will hook people a lot sooner than expecting them to click through to your About Us page to understand that. Because again, you've got such a short time to grab their attention, and doing it emotionally is the most effective way to do that. Sticking along that theme is leading as well with your emotional gains that your product or service offers. So a lot of the websites that I look at will love to shout about what materials is used in the product, or how long they've been trading in a certain service, and they're all justifiable things. But putting before them the emotional gains that the viewer, the audience, is going to gain from interacting with your brand. So even it might just be a case of switching the order around on them, or it might be a case of moving them up. But yeah, showing them emotional gains before them logical features. Another one is using you more than I. So a lot of businesses talk about themselves a lot, and they feel like the website is there for them, but it's not. It's there for your customers. You want them to read it and feel like they're, you're actually talking to them. And a good way to see whether you're doing that balanced enough or not is seeing if you've got more yous in your content than you have I's, we's, things like that. And the last one is making it easy to navigate. So again, we briefly talked about that before. Think about your customer's journey. What is it that you want them to do, think, say, and feel at each part of that stage of their journey, and how does your website fit into that? And using your website as if you was a customer, and is it easy enough to go on to that next stage without knowing anything about how you've built your website, because you know it because you were there mapping it out before it was even launched, but someone, a stranger, has not got a clue about where they want to go. So is it easy enough to navigate? So yeah, they're my top 5 tips. I want to just shout out another one as well, because I was having a conversation with Matt O'Connor, who's a great website developer. So if you're watching us, Matt, put a comment in the chat box, because you all should connect with Matt. But when we had a conversation about this a few weeks ago, I was writing a blog about this exact topic. So again, if you want more access to that, let me know. I can send you a link to it. But a good piece of advice that he gave me was thinking of your website as well, thinking back to what conversations you have with your customer when you're doing face-to-face. So we've all sold our products or engaged with people face-to-face, whether we're talking to people about our products or service. Think back to that conversation. What is it that you say? What is it that they ask? What do they want to know? And make sure your website is replicating that without you having to be in the room. So giving it that purpose, as it's that online conversation that you would normally have face-to-face. So again, that might help with making it easy to navigate. That might help with leading with them emotions. Just really thinking back to basics and thinking, what is it that you say when you're in a room with someone that you really want to work with or sell your products to.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Jess, and thank you, Matt, for that bonus. Yeah, we've had Matt on before. We need to get him back. Yeah, I think those are all really good tips, and put those in the comments as well. Feel free to reply to those with any examples that you have, or it's like, oh yeah, this is what I haven't done. And that tip about the you is so important, and it's great for any kind of copy in your marketing, just to make sure that you are really focused on when it's all about you, then how can the viewer engage with that? Because what they care about is themselves. You know, I think that's really, really important. And something actually, and I must grab the link and put it in the chat as well. I've got a free marketing evaluator as well, by the way, that you can access. And you literally go on it and you can look at your website homepage or look at a flyer or any kind of piece of marketing that you have and go through the questions one by one and answer them, and it will give you a score. And if the score is 3 or less, well, if it's below 3, the chances are that piece of marketing isn't going to work at all. What you're aiming for is a 4 or 5, ideally a 5. And so, you know, and you can do that repeatedly, keep making tweaks, come back and do it again to help your marketing to be more effective. So I will grab the link. I'll probably have to do it after this live. I'll grab the link and come back and put it in the comments for you.
I've got I've got a tip. I want to get Jess's take on that, if I may. What about having an industry appropriate design? And the reason I asked that is because we were talking earlier about ads that we've watched that we just don't get because maybe the design is not appropriate for the product. How do you feel about that? Would you say that's important, Jess?
Oh, muted.
Sorry, I would say, yeah, it's definitely one to consider, but I would also say that what's more important than that is thinking about what's attractive and what's engaging with the audience that you want to engage with. So putting them first. So sometimes for some brands, especially if you're a challenger brand, that means you being completely different to the industry and, you know, the industry norm, and showing that you're something different and showing that you can offer people something that what the market is already offering, you know, isn't offering.
Can you give an example, sorry, of a challenger? No, that's not what you mean by challenger brand.
Yeah, a challenger brand is a brand that so when you look at where your brand positions next to what your customers want and what your competition already do, a challenger brand is a brand that offers something that no one else does, but maybe in the similar market. So let's just off the top of my head, let's say see if you agree with this as well. Maybe Dyson is a challenger brand. Because, you know, with the hair dryers, the hair straighteners, that's something that we've always had. Well, not always had, but, you know, that's quite a common market and it's quite a common thing that you can go out and buy. But they've come into that market and said, yeah, but we can do it different. And it's not, you know, the hair dryers are completely different, aren't they? The design of it, the marketing of it and things like that. So they're a challenger brand in that instance. So if you're a challenger brand, then you would want to differentiate yourself and look different from the industry norm. But for other brands, that's not the case. For other brands, they want to really kind of sit in there and show their credibility through that industry. So then they would have to consider the, you know, a design or a visual or something that really fits in that market. So again, when you touched on research, Stephen, it all goes back to making sure you've got the right research and you know exactly what your strategy is, and not underestimating that stage, because that's not the stage that you can feel things and see things. Does that make sense?
Thanks.
I've got to say as well, though, you've got to be so careful. Like if your brand is more traditional and you want to kind of have the look and feel of a particular industry, please just be really careful, because if you look and sound like everybody else, then, you know, is that differentiation there? Is that market dominating position there? So you can do both. You can be differentiated, but still give people the credibility and feeling of security, and, you know, that they want to feel safe with this particular brand. Like financial markets, you know, the financial kind of products comes to mind with those particularly, you know, like banks, financial planners, all those kinds of things. But yeah, I think that differentiation is really important. And I think all too often what happens is, I think particularly with younger businesses, that they, you know, they start a business and they kind of look, what is everyone else doing? What are they charging? And they just start matching their competition So then you get all these businesses as they're going, and they don't change that. And so they can be 5-10 years into their business has grown a lot, and unless they've kind of gone through process around what's their market domination position, bringing that then into their branding and into their marketing, they can just end up losing out, because people are just like, meh, yeah, it's all right, but I'm not really connecting to this. I don't see my problem in this. You've got to be able to hook people in, and I think that's really, really important. So yeah, great. Look, I think we've covered some great stuff there. So, Stephen, do you have anything else you want to add, or any questions from what we've talked about here today?
No, I think the tips that Jess gave are great. They're really good tips, and to be fair, they're quite sensible, and it's there's nothing out of the ordinary there. There's nothing that you think, oh, why didn't I think of that? It just makes perfect sense, and those tips can be replicated through so many things, not just websites, everything. So they're universal. So thanks for those tips, Jess. Appreciate that.
No, good. I'm glad.
Jess, anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, I suppose one thing is obviously thinking about them tips, replaying this video if you need to, just to hear them in more detail. But making sure you know the purpose of your website. Is the purpose of it to build awareness, or is it to make that purchase, or is it to nurture that people that are already customers or clients? I've got a great example I won't go into now of a brand that is the exact same brand but has completely different websites for UK and America. And again, this is a conversation that me and Matt were talking about too. So if you want to know more about that, let me know. And also just to repeat that I'm still offering my brand audits at the minute, where I look at your website and see how well you're communicating your brand through your website. So again, if you want to take advantage of that, drop me a message and yeah, let me know.
Fantastic. Well, I think there's some great stuff here. If you've got any questions, reply to a particular comment, like with the tips, tag whoever it is you want to speak to, or reach out to us by DMing us, etc. And if you've got value from what you've heard here today, we're all able to add value in different ways. Feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to have a conversation with you. Well, thank you as always, Stephen and Jessica. It's been great for us to be here and have this chat. And we look forward to seeing you same time next week. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.